Formula One is one of the most popular sports on the planet, with a race at the Strip of Las Vegas that costs over $500 million, a Netflix show, and even a movie that aired last year. It's a sport that was once dying and exploded into something nobody could imagine, but now they are again on the wrong edge of the tipping scale. Since 2017, F1 went upwards, not entirely because of the racing, but more due to the new ownership of Liberty Media. They knew how to grow a sport on television and beyond the main distribution channel. They didn't have an easy task. Formula One was more of a niche and sometimes even a dead sport. The fact that the entire 2010s were dominated by two teams didn't help either. The sport was meant to be a battle between engineers and drivers, but the reality was that it was dominated for 4 years by Red Bull Racing, followed up by a monstrous period from 2014 until 2020 by Mercedes. In 2015, the Mercedes team even led 82% of all laps. I think that says enough about the dominance they had. The main reason? Their engine, which they developed for $1 billion. As you can imagine, an absolute rocket ship gets developed with such amounts of money. However, Liberty Media did have a plan. The once marketing, social media, and fan experience-averse sport became open. They lifted the social media restrictions and teams were able to share more. A day in the life of Daniel Ricciardo and Mercedes building up the car were some of the first videos that gained a lot of attention. But that was only the start. In 2018, they started filming for their Netflix show, which aired in 2019. A new opportunity to bring in new and younger fans, something F1 never focused on. Those young fans could never buy something from Rolex, for example, so it wasn't interesting for them. It wasn't the first sports documentary, but it revolutionized the format. The show became more of a fly on the wall. It molded the drivers and team bosses into characters which people can feel attached to. It could feel like you're a part of it, know the people in the sport, and that ultimately led to a big boom in popularity. As the sport and social media were growing, the rules changed. Mercedes wasn't dominant anymore, and in 2021, we got one of the best title battles of all time. Verstappen and Hamilton put up a real show, which they totally milked. Fair play to them. A literal high followed up by new cars in 2022, a battle between two teams, a dominant 2023 season by Verstappen, and the resurgence of McLaren in 2024 made the sport evolve even further. In 2025, we got a new champion with Lando Norris, a driver that's popular with the new fandom of Formula One. In the meantime, F1 expanded. Races in Jeddah, Miami, and Las Vegas got added to the calendar. That fits the vision of Liberty Media. They wanted to bring the sport closer to fans. You can do that with social media and a Netflix show, but what's better than cars going through a city center or the Las Vegas Strip? They received a lot of backlash, admittedly also from me. An F1 car is intended to go as fast as possible. Where do you achieve that? On a real circuit, not through a city. But Liberty Media's plan works. Miami attracts a lot of people who normally wouldn't attend the sport. That gives them eyeballs beyond the normal audience, exactly what they aimed for. Right now, Formula One is at its highest level of popularity. The sport has never been as big as it is now, with every team being profitable due to the cost cap, drivers being the face of brands, and Grand Prix being more of a festival than a race weekend. They completed their goal, but there is a danger lurking, and it's something they need to be aware of. There is a small line between showing all the extras and oversharing. When you overshare or aim too much for everything around the actual race, you frustrate people. There are still people that watch the sport for the engineering, the driver performance, and don't care about the glitter and glamour. I, for instance, don't really care about the dog of Leclerc or which outfit Hamilton wears, and showing off their girlfriends, it isn't something I care about either. The whole Singapore Grand Prix of 2025, it was exactly that. Okay, Singapore isn't the best Grand Prix, but there were overtakes and moments that mattered. What did we get? Girlfriend cam, something that is in my eyes oversharing. Anyway, I get that you need to cater to both audiences. You have to find a balance between the people that come for the cars and the people that might not have a 90-minute race attention span. Formula One, yes, it is a sport, but it's also an entertainment business. You have to feed both instances. However, That's not why the sport might die in 2026. The main reason for this is the same reason as 2014, the new engine rules, something I've made a video about already, but now that we know even more, I have to talk about it again. It's a ridiculous rule set that won't last long in my eyes. Before I continue, I have to say that I was wrong about the engines being more of a vacuum cleaner on the sound part. They might even sound louder, and I have to admit, I totally love that. I mean, have you heard the Audi? What a machine. But as much as I hated the V6 engines, I wish we kept the old construction. Now we're stuck with a 50-50 split that makes the drivers shift as much as a button spammer in a video game. Drivers need to lift so early, otherwise their battery isn't charged, and if that's the case, they can't even reach a high top speed on the main straight. Who thought that was a good idea? But to make it even worse, that battery drains in literal seconds, and when you're driving on the main straight, you run out of energy. Of course, it's a change and everyone needs to adapt, but it all feels very unnatural. There's always one guy you can count on to call everyone out, and that is Verstappen. He said exactly what everybody thinks but is too afraid to say. It has nothing to do with racing, and it all feels like Formula E on steroids, something that is hard to disagree with if you ask me. Some drivers say it isn't as bad as Verstappen insists, but he was the one that said in 2023 it would be a disaster. It turns out he is quite right. The start procedure is adjusted because they first need to rev the engine for 5 seconds, otherwise they don't have battery. Driving an F1 car isn't about driving anymore, but rather trying to get the right energy deployment or battery mode so you can be faster. Of course, that might bring new excitement, but why change something that works? The real danger, however, is the gap between teams, like we got in 2014. If we have to make our case from testing, Mercedes is on it again, and they didn't even show their real pace. Ferrari is close, but it has a small turbo, which means they might not have good straight-line speed. Red Bull Racing honestly nailed their first engine, and they're in the mix too. But my god, what has Honda done? Did they just give Fernando Alonso a GP2 engine part 2? A sequel to the drama he's already experienced? Adrian Newey apparently said that they can't even reach the minimum 250 kilowatt-hours recharge with the battery. The other teams reached 350. That's really bad. Mercedes might have found another loophole. They used to have party mode, but now they have a compression ratio trick, which results in more horsepower. Of course, in a new regulation set, this can happen, but with stuff like this, it might be too big. As a result of that and many other issues, the F1 Commission already has a plan B. Yes, they aren't convinced by these new regulations themselves. They could reduce the maximum electric power to extend the period you can deploy it. This would help Honda, but also teams that aren't as optimized as Mercedes engines. They know that if one team pulls away by a mile, they go back to the 2014 days. One team completely obliterating the others. A gap that is too big to close within a season, or maybe a whole regulation set. Then they have a real problem on their hands, and all the hard work could be for nothing. Everything about this could be totally wrong when we arrive at Melbourne, and all the teams could be close to each other, but I don't think that'll be the case. There will be a team or two that disappears in the distance. That would result in new rules to artificially enhance other manufacturers, and that's not what we want, or not what I want. If you want to know more about the engine history and why I hate the new engines, watch this video right now.